BookTube, it's Amy, and I'm back with another reading from the private papers of a bankrupt bookseller by Will Y. Darling. This is the 1931 fictionalized journal of a English bookseller. And today we are on page 86 of my edition, beginning with a section titled Business Books, Books on Politics, etc. Enter a middle-aged man. Advance the bookseller into the center. The bookseller bows. I want the Dolly Dialogues, the best edition. The bookseller gropes around his shelves. He has no good edition of the book, he knows. He only has a good, clean, second-hand Nelson, pre-war 7-penny, and this he produces. Good Lord, is that the only edition? It is the only edition I've got, I admit. I dropped the third person. He was annoyed, but he hadn't time and couldn't say where a better edition could be got, so he bought the one I offered. Then comes the astonishing thing. He gave me an address to which the book was to be posted. An address here, and farther instructions to stick an inscription on the front of it. Here is the inscription he gave me to put in it. I thought it rather nice and wished I knew the recipient. Lines to accompany the Dolly Dialogues. Life aches sometimes, ... and always will. The best of us it cannot fill. We crave for more than empty days of languor or of vacant praise. This book is good, not great, but quite well done as these things go. I give it, so when dull care dogs throw in his teeth these dialogues. He was a little abashed, and to prove to me he was really the sensible man he looked, he picked up a couple of books which were in a shilling case I sometimes display. He bought both, Ernest J.P. Ben's The Trade of Tomorrow and Arthur Kitson's Trade Fallacies. Both books are old stock. I think they were published during the war, but my customer paid his half-crown, 2 shillings for business and 6 pence for Dolly, and went. These businessmen are wonderful, and there should be a market for a British Babbitt if there is a British Sinclair Lewis anywhere. Their neat-tailored appearance and their wild sentimental minds, their dull businesses and entertaining typists, their Rotary societies and their would-be romantic adventures, what curiosities they are. I would be a collector of them, and certainly the one who in his mind married Anthony Hope's The Dolly Dialogues, with a poetical presentation on the flyleaf, to Arthur Kitson's Trade Fallacies, will take first position and a high place in the prize list. My lot of business books become more entertaining when I dwell on these possibilities. What may be the upshot of a sale of my others, and how strangely are they to be joined by the purchaser? Of course, business books are hardly books at all. I rarely buy them deliberately. They come in the lots I get at the sales. I have to take them in private purchases, and not a few I order specially for customers who fail to claim their orders, or who, when they see the book they ordered, think better of it. I don't blame them. I had a man the other day, it was more truthfully months ago, who ordered Progressive Co-Partnership, published by Nisbet. He didn't like it when he saw it, and yet what is wrong with it? If one is interested, I am sure Mr. Ernest Walls can tell one as much as any. It is dedicated by the author to his wife, which is always touching, and he writes in his preface that a businessman who has written a book, for example, is quite certain to be called a hypocrite if he does not happen to practice in his own business everything he may preach in his book. I will not call him a hypocrite anyway. It was quite entertaining to read of Godden and Eclair, of the gas companies and Lever Brothers, not that I can fancy a co-partnership world in which I would care to live. I am for the individualist camp. I am more taken with the bold Case for Capitalism or the Confessions of a Capitalist. These are more the stuff I like to read if I have to read business books. Co-partnerships and co-operations at best produce herds of well-fed, contented folk, and this world may have little meaning. But the best of mankind somehow feel it is not for that we have dragged ourselves up from the slime of the proverbial seas. Books about business and politics are really toy books. Businessmen cannot scan the immensities eternally. Poets do that and go mad or die of drink. Businessmen have to plan the narrow business of food and drink and shelter, and there is a literature which is all theirs. I do not despise it. Indeed, I have definitely often bought books which have that appeal. In political economy, I have Mill and Adam Smith, both readable, both books which, if studied, would make any of us wiser than any prime minister I have lived under or seen. I have another work on political economy too, of which I am specially proud. It is quite unreadable, and I am sure unsaleable. I often take it down and look at it. I leave it about to tempt people, but it is as unreadable as a cuneiform inscription. The book is on the principles of political economy and taxation by David Ricardo Esquire, 2nd edition, London, John Murray, Albemarle Street, 1819. It has a back and covers of green leather, is in excellent condition, never having been read, and it is really beautifully printed. I do not like David Ricardo. No publisher dare write Micah Arlen Esquire or even Rudyard Kipling Esquire today. The book is on offer at 1 shilling. Its companion, although I had it in a different lot, a parcel from Dublin, is simply labelled in gilt Speeches. The binding is white vellum. The boards are of faded marble paper on incredibly stout cardboard. It contains the speeches of the Right Honourable George Canning, the Right Honourable William Huckinson, and the substance of the speech, so the title page reads, of Francis Jeffrey Esquire, upon introducing the toast, Freedom of Labour. But let the labourer recollect that in exercising his own rights, he cannot be permitted to violate the rights of others. The dreary speech was published, it is almost unbelievable, at the request of the meeting, and printed for Archibald Constable and Company. It is sold by all of the booksellers in London, Glasgow, Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, Sheffield, Aberdeen, Dublin, Newcastle on Tyne, Perth, Newcastle, Hull, and Liverpool. The 2 Newcastles is not a mistake, I make bold to say. Of all the booksellers who sold it in 1825, I am the only one with a copy today. The price again is 1 shilling. I got up from all this writing infinitely weary. Is there nothing of vivid interest in this world of politics and books of business? I read their names over. An economist, Protest. Cannon. The State as a Farmer, Radford. Welfare Work, Proud. The Social Contract, Rousseau. An Introduction to the Study of Prices, Leighton. My knees are weakened. My head is dizzy. I am overcome with the miseries of mankind and the dreariness of the roads along which they travel in pursuit of the mirage of happiness. And let's try another header here. The next section is titled Blue Books. Now, I have a couple blue books behind me, but this section is on blue books. I want a set of blue books, and that is in quotes. I want a set of blue books. I don't keep any, I replied, but I will procure what you want from the stationery office. What is the subject? The subject, the dame echoed. The subject doesn't matter. I want them in blue. The conversation was not so intelligible as what I have written, but at length I grasped, with the help of a piece of blue tapestry which my customer had in her hand, that it was books of a certain shade of blue binding that she desired, books to match her carpet and the curtains of her drawing room. I was fortunate, and when my mind had coped with the initial absurdity of the idea of buying books for the color of their binding, I found her an easy and a profitable client. My hope is that one day she may look in these blue books and find some of the salvation which I have found in literature. Here are some blue books, all of which now occupy a neat rack book box on a drawing room table which I will never see. Kenneth Graham's Wind in the Willows, Methuen. The Moon and Sixpence, W.S. Mom, Cape. The Mrs. Mallet by E.H. Young, Cape. The Travel Letters of Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, Cape. And to complete the list, The Shade of Blue is Perfect, 5 volumes of Duckworth's Popular Library of Art. I am a house decorator, really, as well as a bookseller. I decorate minds and rooms. My friend next door decorates bodies, but he is no artist. And let's see, how long is the next section? We'll read the next section as well. So the next section is titled Books, Bookbinding, and Businessmen. Rereading what I have written about businessmen and business books, I feel I have been too hard on what must be a growing part of the bookseller's business. We ought to be glad that this important section of the community is interested in books. They were not ever thus, pride ruled their will. I could not abide the opinion of others, but now they are, like us, teachable and willing to learn. If they bring their simplicity into the curious and tortuous world of books, we must be tolerant. An inquiry from a well-known and well-to-do man prompts this attempt at recantation. Among many friends, I have one in the house furnishing business, and it is at his suggestion that my customer has called on me. He has a library in dark mahogany with a deep piled black carpet and hangings, a rich, handsome room with great high windows. His idea is that books should all be bound in vellum, the old yellowing vellum of which I have only one sample, my volume of speeches. My customer is right. The effect of walls filled with books bound with old vellum will be very attractive, and I am to quote for the binding. He has quantities of books, and some are unworthy of rebinding, unworthy in paper, printing, and contents, but it is his wish, and I hope to get the order. Bookbinding is dear, bookbinding to order, that is, and I think it is a pity. It is one of the trades which might be developed, for most booksellers will agree that some modern bookbinding is very bad. Apropos of this bookbinding order, or the prospect of it, rather, my house furnishing friend related the story of the self-made man from Glasgow, or was it Liverpool, who ordered a library. "How will you have the books bound?" asked the bookseller, a better man than I to have thought of that. "Bound?" demanded the buyer. "I want the best bindings." "We will have them bound in Morocco," then said the bookseller, as if to decide that point finally. "Not at all," thundered a man of business. "Bound in Morocco? Why the devil should I have them bound in Morocco? I've made my money in Glasgow, or was it Liverpool, and I'll have my books bound in Glasgow." I think it is a good story, but businessmen are not really like that. I think they don't get the amount of respect the community should give them, but perhaps the community, having given them its cash, feels they are well paid. Democracy acts always with emphasis, but its acts are often at variance with and contrary to its expression through the ballot box. Democracy at the ballot box repudiates big business, but in its hour-to-hour life it pays tribute. Lord Rothermere, who seems to receive an, to me, unmerited amount of abuse in certain quarters, receives an homage which kings might envy. Every morning over 1.5 million citizens say definitely, "Here, my lord, is my tribute. Here I render to Caesar the things which are Caesar's by right of conquest. Here I freely accord to you my penny for your daily mail." The other leaders of democracy may gnash their teeth, but if they are real Democrats, they will not deny that something less unstable than the popular vote goes not once in a year or so, but every day in the week, to one whom they, in their ignorance, think only a press lord. The great newspapers command wider suffrages on harder terms than do the great politicians. Who would pay a penny a day after day to hear what Mr. Baldwin, Mr. MacDonald, or Mr. Lloyd George has to say? And we will end the reading at that for today. The next couple of sections are titled Almost an Advertisement, followed by Books on Travel and Guidebooks. Books on travel are some of my favorite armchair reading.